is an interview with. Do you go by your your level was colonel?
Yeah, I was full bird colonel in the Air Force.
This is Colonel Woodard, and goes by the name of Billy. And we're going to be talking today about the Hollow Earth and many other things too. I would imagine. I see a little smile there, so it looks like we're in for it. So,
Oh,
so tell
yes.
us a little bit about yourself, Billy.
Well, I was deposited on the surface with my sister, twin sister, and that was back in 1951. So my my birth certificate that I have doesn't belong to me. It's to a dead baby that died of bronchopneumonia. So I don't actually have a birth certificate, like
So,
Obama.
who are your real parents?
My real parents would be Zora and Soraya.
And they live in the inner earth.
Yes, they do.
So tell us a little bit about your experience in the Air Force.
Well, okay. Maybe I should make a recording and just play the recording over and over. My time in the Air Force was quite unique, to say the least. But after I graduated basic training and advanced training, they asked me where I wanted to go. I said, "Well, I'm signed up to go to Hawaii." They said, "Well, where you're signed up to go and where you're going is two different things," as you well know. But so I ended up going to the Pentagon at the request of my adopted father. He was stationed at Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. At that time, it was the Army Air Corps. It wasn't the Air Force. The Air Force had not come into being at that time. But so he was stationed at Area 51. And one time while we were out having a barbecue, he made the statement. We looked up and we saw something hovering between the clouds, and we looked up, and he looks up and he goes, "Up, here we go again." We didn't know what he meant by that, but so I asked him about it. I said, "What do you mean, here we go again?" He says, "Well, back in 1947 when I was stationed here, we had a crashed vessel that was in the Lincoln National Forest, and part of it had been torn off from the original craft and strewn over the Brazil Ranch. About 20 feet of it had been torn away from the main craft, and the rest of it came to rest in the Lincoln National Forest. So that's what Roswell was all about. Uh, he says the weather balloon was just a cover story to keep unwelcome visitors away from the crash site. But of course that didn't work because there's a lot of people out there looking around.
And
But
what was his name? Your father,
Woodard,
Woodard.
Woodard, yeah, it's Woodard, not Woodward. I don't
Right.
know, people always mistake that, and they put a W in the middle of the last name. But I guess that's common practice. However, I was stationed at the Pentagon with my adopted father, and so they proceeded to tell me that the Pentagon was just my first duty station, and that my next duty station would be in Nevada at a facility out in the Nevada desert, which was also on the property of the Nellis Air Force Base.
So you're talking about S4, Dreamland,
Yeah, S4, Dreamland.
Area
S4 and
51.
Dreamland are above the ground, and Area 51 is well below that. The first level of Area 51 is actually 2.5 miles underground,
So what years were you there?
and it goes down from. Did you know that?
No, how far does it go down?
It goes down 27 levels.
So
The first,
while you were there, you must have known Bob Lazar then, huh?
I met him.
Yeah.
I gave him a tour of the facility. I was ordered to give him a tour of the facility due to the fact that he was working with propulsion units and things of that nature. So I was told to give him a tour of our facility, and so I did. I met him at the first level of the Area 51 at the the lift or elevator, if you want to call it that. But it didn't have numbers on the elevator to what levels to go down to or nothing like that. It just came down to that level, and that's it. So I escorted him in and showed him around. We showed him the hangar deck where 16 dish-shaped aircraft were stationed, and he was allowed to walk up to them and even go inside. I took him into the craft that I was assigned to for night maneuvers, and I took him inside, and he had to stoop over to get inside. The roof, the ceiling was quite low, and you basically had to stoop over to walk around on the inside. But because the occupants that manned that craft were quite small, about 4.5 to maybe about 4.5 feet tall, and they were round heads, almond-shaped eyes, and they didn't talk. They would speak directly to your mind. They had lips, but they never moved. And it was just whenever you're in their presence, you could actually hear their thoughts, and they could hear yours. So that's how you communicated. You didn't actually talk verbally.
So, Billy, before we go down underneath into Area 51,
yes,
I would like to just sort of educate the listeners a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. And actually, there's a lot of history for a hollow Earth. I mean, even back to the story of Gilgamesh, where Ishtar, the great goddess of love, of war, is said to have gone down through 7 gates to the underworld. And we have several testimonies from people like Credo Mukwa. He was interviewed by David Icke, and Credo is a Zulu shaman, and he's talking about there's a reptilian race that live underground. And then we have, of course, Admiral Byrd and all the explorers, and we have lots of photographs from space, from NASA. So it's only been recently that I've even started taking this seriously, to be honest with you. It was so far over my head into
understanding
the realms of impossibilities, but something has struck a chord here, and I'm realizing that there's some valid information here. I just did an interview with some people up in Mount Shasta about Telos and Agartha and all that. So I just want the people listening to this that keep an open mind, because this is so
Oh yes.
far beyond what our everyday life would predict. It's somewhat like if we were all living, or think we were living, on a flat planet, and we have an explorer coming back saying, no, it's not flat, it's spherical, I just went around the world. As hard as that was for some of the people to grasp, all you have to do is start opening your mind up a little bit and start realizing that there is a body of evidence that really points to the fact that this could be true, and there's geological evidence too. So take us down. What was your experience going down level by level by level? I'm sure that there must be some of the first levels to where some of the people go, but then as I understand it, you reach a certain level and it's actually starting to be more controlled by extraterrestrials.
You talking about Area 51 or?
Yeah.
Or, oh yeah. Okay, you go down 16 levels. On the 16th level, well, the first 16 levels are man machine. Basically, the you heard rumors in the past about people hearing boring machines underground or sounds coming from underground, and that was the Rand Corporation drilling, or not drilling, but boring passage and tunnels underneath the ground. If you notice, way in the past there was a lot of troop movements above ground, all on major highways and things of this nature. You don't see those anymore, mainly because they're all going underground. They're very seldom do you ever see a convoy on the surface. In most cases, when they're transporting from point A to point B, it's underground unless it's local. If it's local, then you might see them on the surface.
So
but
Billy,
hardly
when you're saying this, there's something that comes to mind, because I've heard a similar story like this, and what comes to mind is, how are they keeping? Like, I can see how they can keep a general quiet with disclosure agreements and Leavenworth and 20 years and all that, but how are they keeping so many private soldiers on a private level from talking about this?
Well, they basically threaten them bodily harm, I myself, I've even been threatened myself, but like I told them, I'm not really concerned about you because I am protected, and they know it. So they came to my home when I was at Mount Shasta a few years back. Government agents dressed in black came to my house, knocked on my door. I opened the door, and there was a man and two men and one woman, all dressed in black. They said, "May we come in?" And I said, "Absolutely." They come in. They identified themselves. They pulled their identification out, showed it to me. I said, "Okay, fine, have a seat."